All right, well, we can go ahead and get started. It's now 6:03. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining us to learn and ask questions about the 23-25 general government tentative agreement that we're currently voting on. We wanted to provide an opportunity for members to get some of their questions about the agreement answered, along with hearing a summary of the highlights of that agreement. And as you can see, we have an ASL interpreter, Karen, with us. So welcome, Karen. And just a few logistics about the meeting. If you'd like to ask a question, there's a button at the bottom of your screen labeled Q&A. So that's where you can submit a question. And either we will answer that question live or one of our panelists will answer it actually in the Q&A text box. And our agenda for tonight is to briefly review the highlights of the agreement. Ashley and Mike are going to do that, and then spend some time answering your questions. Then we're going to cover voting, how to vote, where to vote, any questions about voting, and then briefly talk about next steps for this contract. So to introduce our panelists tonight, I will start with myself. I am Kurt Spiegel. I am the interim executive director of the Federation. Joining us, we've got Mike Yastrzebski, who is the council president, Ashley Fuston, who is the council vice president, Patrick Srugru, who is the WFSE comms director, Teresa Parsons, our labor advocate and class and comp specialist, Melissa Mills, our executive assistant, and Emily Roberts, our coordinator of executive services. So we are all here to answer your questions. And we obviously probably are most likely not able to get to all of your questions. I know there was quite a few also submitted in a SurveyMonkey in advance of this meeting. So rest assured, if we don't get to your question tonight, we will have those questions and we'll follow up with you individually. And I also need to tell all participants that this is currently being recorded. So just to be aware of that. So without further ado, just to kind of introduce the agreement, as you might have heard, this we believe is a historic agreement and is the richest contract that the Federation has ever bargained for our general government bargaining units. It's at a cost of roughly $735 million. Our last full contract bargain in 1921 had a total cost of $356 million. So this is almost double the value to our members. It was a process of 9 months of hard work by our bargaining team, which Ashley and Mike were part of, and long hours, but also member actions. Many of you participated in many of our job actions, which really made the difference, especially near the end. So thank you for that. And please know that, in bargaining, we never get everything we want. It is nice. But in the end, like I said, I think this is bringing a lot of improvements to not only our economic situation, but some of our working conditions as well. We've had a lot of questions about the class specific list, how that ended up being what it was, etc. And just in general, I want to tell you that our bargaining team proposed over 400 class specific increases, and we're able to achieve increases for almost half of those. We ended up with 185 or 186 roughly class specific increases, which is frankly the most we've ever achieved. But the reality is we bargained hard for all of them to the bitter end, and management had a limited amount of funds that they could allocate towards that list. So they frankly told us no on many of them that they felt did not meet their recruitment and retention thresholds, that they're bound to, follow those that had the worst of the worst recruitment and retention. So they, just to give you some background on that, and we certainly can touch more on that later in our question and answering. So I think that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mike and Ashley.
Thanks, Kurt. So yeah, just as Kurt said, quick thank you to everyone for coming out tonight, for joining us. Get some questions hopefully answered. Again, if we don't get to your questions, you can always follow up with our mcc@wfse.org, and we'll try to get those answers to you also. And I think one of the first things, Kurt, of course, mentioned the economic piece, which is huge. It is historic. Like I said, double what we've ever achieved before. Knowing that, again, we all came in hoping for a lot of stuff. We didn't necessarily get all of those things, but it was definitely a fight till the bitter end. I think one of the other things, before we get into some of the other specifics, highlights, that I kind of want to mention is also, and I know this isn't as fun for people as some of the money and things like that, is we didn't lose anything in this contract. And what I mean by that is, in other contracts, we've had management attempt to take back things that we've previously won around, your workplaces, around your rights at work, your ability to handle and deal with, maybe bully bosses, have flexible scheduling for childcare, like all of the things that are important to folks are in that contract. And while we wanted to improve language on a lot of stuff, that some of it we did, some of it we didn't, we were able to hold the line on every article that they were trying to do takeaways on. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up in the beginning, that I think is a really important piece. A lot of the economic highlights, Ashley, if you want to go over some of those, I'll hand it over to you if you want to jump on a bunch of that stuff, and we'll just hand it back and forth. So go ahead.
All right. So when we talk economic highlights, right, that's our across the board increases, and then things like the retention bonus, premium pay, so on and so forth. Obviously, most of you know that we got the 7% across the board increases for everyone covered by our agreement. So that's 4% in the first year and 3% in the second year. We were able to get retention bonuses. It's $1,000 retention bonus for state employees who are employed as of July 1st and remain employed July 1st, 2022, and remain employed through July 1st, 2023. Same with a COVID booster incentive for those who have gotten their COVID booster or will get their COVID booster. We've worked with management to get that $1,000 incentive as well for those of us who've gotten our boosters, which is always nice. 5% premium pay for all employees who work on site in a 24/7 direct care facility, which is pretty huge because we know a lot of those facilities are really hurting on every layer, right? Different assignment pays that are going to help different members, hundreds of our members. Obviously, not every member is going to get hit with an assignment pay, but this is going to help hundreds and hundreds of our members. And that's within Appendix O of our contract. We, healthcare, we were able to improve the way that the formula is created, the formula that they use. This is really hard for someone to explain like me, who's not in that healthcare. But instead of a formula that they were using before, where that 85% that they pitched in was not necessarily a full 85% of our premium, now it is a full 85% of our premium, whatever that premium is for the plan that we are in. And then we're just paying that 15. So while that percentage looks like it's the same, that's actually giving us a better deal because we're paying less out of pocket for our monthly premiums, and management is actually paying more now, which is, I don't know about you, but that always makes me happy when they pay a little more. Shift premiums are something we've had before, but we were able to get that increased from $1 per hour to $2.50 an hour. And then for the registered nurses, their weekend shift premium was increased by $1, so from 3 to 4, which is pretty exciting, knowing how our nursing staff is hurting as well. Risk class 7,200 and 7,201 employees. So this one was new to me when I was reading about it. This is in Article 42, of course, the compensation article. That annual payment increased by double. So it was $250 and now it's $500, which is that's a huge deal. Mike mentioned before, Kurt mentioned before, right? This is a historic contract. Economically, it's over $700 million. That's a pretty big win. And then we have different articles as well that we have different gains that we've gone in. And I think Mike's going to go through some of those.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, some other kind of highlights. So for folks that work in jobs where they have to supply their own tools, these are some of our Department of Transportation people, maintenance, trades, an annual $1,200 a year tool allowance, as well as expanding the definition of what they consider as safety footwear for folks within our DBA facilities. So again, getting reimbursements on that, helping all of this, the goal was to, again, put more money in your pocket, right? To help everybody as much as we can, because we know people are hurting. We know the economy is tough right now. Another thing, Ashley mentioned the healthcare. We also were able to get the flexible spending account, if you remember a couple contracts ago, where folks who were making roughly $50,000 a year or less, I think it was $50,004 was the exact amount, got a free $250 annually in the flex savings or flex spending. We actually were able to increase that number to if your annual salary is about 60,000 or less, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, so I'm sorry, I can get that if people want to know exactly what that is. But again, just expanding that pool to who can utilize that benefit. Again, some other things that for specific job classes, covering the cost of CDL renewals for people who need CDL licenses for their jobs. Some additional assignment pay for DOT folks for the plowing, some of the other factors that the people that are, again, the plows are the big one that because I travel the passes a lot, so that one kind of stuck out for me. A 10% assignment pay specifically for adult protective services, those folks there. Criminal Justice Training Center having their certification and recertification expanded. Pathways to legal assistance to reallocate from the paralegal job class. One of the other ones that I think is important along those same lines too is the creation of a new job class within our state institutions, the forensic care associates, who is what most of you would know as the PSAs. And that was something that we've been working on for many years, of trying to create that career ladder for those people. So we were able to accomplish that too. So not only getting, again, more money in this contract and more opportunities, but not just more money, but having more opportunities in the future. And then those again were the big ones for me. We increased the bid system, improved that within our members that are in SOLA, which is our DDA facilities outside of Rainier, Furcrest, the state operated living units that folks there. Some other kind of quick highlights, just improved the language around probationary and trial service appointments, so that if folks are getting that expanded, if you're getting it extended, they actually have to give you a reason instead of just saying that, they feel like it. Again, some increases around or some improvements around language for flexible scheduling for people, for telework. We got some language, not as much as we wanted, but still a great improvement over what we had, which was nothing. Putting some guardrails around the state's ability to use mandatory overtime, so they can't just keep mandoing like they have been. So I think that was a pretty big win. Able to get more union involvement and oversight during disciplinary investigations. Those were kind of the big ones for me. Let me look at my list real quick and just see. I think I mentioned telework, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, those were, I think, some of the highlights. And again, it's a huge document, right? So there's a lot of stuff in there. Also remember, when you're looking for specific job classes, check all of the appendixes and all of the lists, because they're kind of all over the place as far as where management put them in. And I don't know if anybody else has any other highlights they want to add, or if we should go into questions.
Yeah, thanks, Mike and Ashley. Great job. I've gotten a lot of questions both in the Q&A, but also in our SurveyMonkey about the booster. So I wanted to provide a little bit of details about that and answer some of those questions. The booster incentive is $1,000 for, as a one-time lump sum payment. If you meet the following conditions, you choose to be boosted. It can be at a location of your choice. And then you provide the employer with a proof of the up-to-date COVID-19 booster vaccination, which must include any boosters recommended by the CDC at the time the proof is provided. So for example, I believe now if you're over 50, I think that's 2 boosters. If you're under that, I believe it's 1. And you can begin to submit those proofs of boosters after January 1st of 2023 and through the entire year, December 31st. And you'll receive the $1,000 one-time lump sum payment, which will be paid no earlier than the July 25th, 2023 paycheck. So hopefully that answers some of those questions. And Mike, we also had a lot of questions about the 5% and who gets it, who doesn't. Would you mind touching on that?
Yeah, not at all. So the 5% as far as the 24/7 facilities. So that's going to be anyone who is working on site at, again, any of these 24-hour facilities, Eastern State, Western State, Special Commitment Center, Rainier, Yakima Valley, etc. And that's in addition to the COLA. So for those folks, so in the first year, you're getting that 4% COLA plus the 5% for working in the 24/7 facilities. So 9% jump in that. As far as who's eligible, again, it's everyone who's working on site. So if you work out of a 5-day work week, if you work 3 days or more telework, which I don't know many people at any of those facilities that are doing that. I know there are a handful. Those folks will not be eligible, but outside of that, so whether that's, a PSA, an MHT, custodian, food service, social worker, psychologist, LPN, institution counselor, psych associate, any of those positions, anyone who is on site and has any patient interaction will get that 5% increase.
Thanks, Mike. So more booster questions. Who do we submit it to? The MOU says the employer. So I believe to be confidential, if that's, important to you, I would maybe suggest your HR person. And then, does the booster bonus apply to non-cabinet agencies? And yes, if you're covered under this contract, they are included. So that, for those that don't know, that would be Secretary of State,
Insurance commissioner.
OIC,
Yeah.
who have elected officials as their leadership. Does age matter? Yes, because the recommendation by the CDC is age dependent. Like I said, if you're over 50, I believe it's currently 2 boosters, or immunocompromised. So it's really, you got to look at the CDC. Your doctor would certainly be able to help you with that. And whatever's recommended is the booster that, or boosters that you should submit and would be paid for. Let's see. Anybody jump in here if you see a question that you could answer live.
Yeah, I did notice a couple of them that I'd like to touch on, and I know Teresa answered it directly, but I'm gonna mention a couple. So the first question, because that has come up a lot, what would happen if this contract is voted down? I think that's important to discuss with folks. There is RCW, there is language in the law of the state, in order for any of our contracts, so this contract to be funded, it would need to be included in the governor's budget, which means it needs to be ratified, which is what's happening right now. It's being voted on. So when the majority of the members vote to accept this agreement, it is then ratified. That would mean then that we can put it in by October 1st to get into the budget. If it were not to be ratified, if it was voted down, we would not have anything in by October 1st, which means all of these cool things that we just talked about, the 4% COLA, the 5% premium, the booster pay, the retention bonus, all of that goes away. We would get 0. You would get 0 in the first year of the contract. And then we would go back to the table and try to negotiate what we could for the second year of the contract, though unfortunately the reality is at that point we would have very little leverage to get, it's not like we'd get half of this contract now just in the next year. Realistically, we would get way less, if anything, because they're not obligated to offer anything beyond that at that point. And I know folks have feelings on that. That's an RCW issue, so you can bring that up with your elected officials if you think that's something that needs to be changed. But for right now, that's kind of what we're in. And then I saw there's another question around the boosters, if they were, one-time payments or how that's going to look. Ashley, I don't know if you want to answer that one.
The one-time booster payments, I didn't see that question.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, so basically there's a question about, is it one time? Is it only for union members? All the different stuff like that. So it's for anybody covered under this contract. And it is one time. So unfortunately, they're not going to give us $1,000 a year extra for every year we work with the state, or $1,000 a year every year for maintaining our COVID boosters. I mean, I'd like it if they did, but it is a one-time thing. And again, it's for anybody that is covered under this contract.
I've got a question here regarding the class-specific increases. Would you automatically get the increase, or would the increase occur upon performance reviews? And the answer is yes, it would be automatically bumped to whatever range increase was bargained for each job class. So if your job class got a 1 range, that's what you'll go up to July 1. It's not dependent on any job performance review. Teresa, there's a couple in here. I know you're furiously typing answers to
Yeah,
some of these questions, but there's a couple here on the child welfare.
Yeah, I was gonna type that and then I decided, yeah, maybe I should just answer it. So
Okay, thank you.
what I want to tell you is that this bargaining team fought very hard to get an assignment pay for the child welfare group at DCYF. And yes, for the same reasons that the APS investigators are getting that assignment pay. What we were told by DCYF was that OFM had agreed to include you, but DCYF said no, because they wanted it to apply to the entire agency, including clerical support staff. And if they couldn't give it to everyone, they did not accept it. So that was your own agency that did not accept that. And therefore OFM would not agree to it.
Thank you, Teresa. And the Leroy has a question. Which RCW is that? It is 4180. And Ken Grubb, does DRS notify WFSE when PERS changes occur? Not specifically. It's not a topic for bargaining, right? It's a prohibited topic in our RCW scope of bargaining. So we would get notified just like everyone else. But my last review of if you're talking about the contribution rates, I don't believe they are changing. So hopefully that answers your question, Ken. And he says, yes, contribution rates. Yeah, because I know in the past, sometimes we would, bargain a raise and then, your retirement contribution would increase. So I happened to do a little checking and it appears that they are not moving. They're going to remain stable for the next at least year. But, you can go to DRS and pull that up. See, does my first booster count or is it boosters after January 2023? No, if you have already gotten your booster and you are considered fully boosted per the CDC, then yes, you would still qualify. You would just submit that proof after January 1. And that is something that we made sure that our agreement would include for our members.
Yes, we were very, very specific about that. And we didn't want folks to feel that they either, the ones who already did it wouldn't get the money, or folks who maybe are considering it, waiting until January, that sort of thing. I think some of the questions are popping up really fast. So as we're trying to look through those, to give us a second to so are both the retention incentive and booster bonus are to be paid out July 2023? Yes. So July 2020, so your July 25th check would be that one. So it did say, the MOU said no sooner than, so it is possible it still might be another pay cycle or two behind. What we've been trying to encourage folks to do to help alleviate that is, if you already have your booster in January, January 3rd, 4th, whatever, the first time you can, whether it's employee health, whether it's HR, whoever your individual agency needs or requires, send it to them, get a confirmation of that to get on the list, so that's done, you're good to go. Far as that goes.
Thanks, Mike. I got a question here about ranges, which is a good question. So each range is roughly equal to 2.5%. So for example, if you're currently at range 56 and we bargained a 2-range increase for your job class, you will move to range 58 on July 1. which is a 5% increase. Great question. So there's a question about what happens to those who don't get a booster? Nothing. It's voluntary. We were, we conducted a poll of our membership, and loud and clear, they did not want a mandate. Initially, that's what the governor and OFM wanted, was to mandate a booster, similar to the original series of COVID knockdowns. So we pushed back, and it's voluntary. And if you volunteer to do it, you get that $1,000 bucks. And for somebody who's making $50,000 a year, that $1,000 equals a 2% increase. So that's good. So let's see what else we got
So I just saw somebody asked issues at the bargaining that we got from the state that were a surprise or unexpected. I'll answer no, only because we've been doing this long enough that rarely are we surprised. And so by that meaning, early on in bargaining, both sides, we do it too, right? This is part of the bargaining process, is a lot of kind of spaghetti, right? You throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. So people, they will throw out all sorts of stuff. And so the initial things that they threw out, I don't think was really surprising. There were a handful of things that they fought a lot harder on than we expected. We thought these were easy solutions that management did not. And a couple things that they were really motivated to, keep current contract language, those sort of things, which, again, we had quite a few heated discussions with OFM over some of those. I don't think that we necessarily held back some of our disappointment on those decisions, but ultimately, I think we did improve a lot, but there was some other ones that, I've already got my list for next time that we're going to start hitting them for.
So I want to make sure that we talk about a couple of things, and then we can go back to questions. But as you might be aware, we are currently voting now. Voting started last Friday and will end this Friday. And if you weren't able to get your question answered, or you haven't voted yet, or you maybe have coworkers who couldn't attend tonight, we also have scheduled over 170 voter assistance centers at work sites across the state. In most agencies, various locations, again, around the state. So there are those are listed on our website, and we've got staff and bargaining team members attending most of those. So if you have more questions, or you want to know how to vote, please go to one of those on-site voter assistance centers, and you can get your questions answered as well. And I'd like to have Melissa just kind of explain the voting process and how to do it.
Well, I'm not really sure what you mean by the voting process.
Well, how do I
hopefully
vote? How does somebody vote?
Hopefully you have all received your email from our communications department that has the voting website for you. And if you don't, it is vote.wfse.org. From there, you'll be asked to enter your first name, your last name, and your PIN number, but the email that was sent to you should include your PIN number. And if you have any issues with your PIN number, you should be emailing me, and I'll help you out with that. That's really the process.
Okay. So just to remind everyone that only members can vote. However, you can join and be a member and and then vote as soon as Melissa can get you in the system and get a pin assigned. And once the voting's closed, Patrick, our super comms guy, will be sending out an announcement for the contract and let everybody know the outcome. And then before we get to more questions, you know, we're just one part of this process. You know, the first part is to bargain it. The second part is for our members to ratify it. Next, OFM, by that same RCW 4180, has to deem it financially feasible. We don't see an issue there. Then the governor has to put it in his budget submittal to the legislature in December. But then we, as the union and our members, have a lot of work to do to make sure that the legislature funds it, which is not by any means easy or any kind of rubber stamp. We have to fight for this $735 million contract because there's a lot of priorities and not all of them agree that you, public servants who perform and keep this great state of Washington moving, should get these raises. So our ledge and political action staff, members, your officers, all will be working hard to make sure that we get this contract funded. So we're not quite there yet. We still have work to do. So we just want to let you know that we'll be asking you to come help us talk to your elected officials to make sure we get this contract ratified by the legislature.
Thanks, Kurt. I've seen the same question a couple of times show up. When you get moved up a range, do you maintain your same step? Yes, you do. So if you go from a 58 to a 60 and you're at a step G, and you move up to a 60, you're still at a step G. You don't get dropped down to be the same pay that you were before you got the promotion or the range increase.
Yeah, and Teresa can correct me if I'm wrong, but just because you increase in range, you should not lose your M step. So.
Correct. If you are moving like into a new job class, and yeah, this gets a little complicated, but let me just say it this way. If you move into a different job class as a result of contract negotiations, and it puts you, and you've already been at step M in the prior class, any time that is spent at step L will be preserved. It gets a little bit murky. I know I won't get into the weeds, but if you have questions about this, just let us know and I can walk you through the actual scenario. There's a lot of different ways it could apply. So.
Thank you, Teresa. Oh, Ashley, go ahead.
So I saw a really great question on here. Somebody asked about their class. They haven't seen an increase in quite a long time. You are not alone. I'm going to start there. But their question is, how do they as a shop steward talk to coworkers about not quitting the union because they're frustrated that their class didn't see an increase? And I got to say, we're hearing this a lot and that needs to be addressed. When we go to the table, just recently, when we went to the table with 70% membership, right? We are not as loud as we could be. And how we talk to our coworkers now is we say, hey, look, we got a historic contract. We did amazing. And now we can use this as a jumping off point to do even better next time. The more active we get, the louder we get, the higher that percentage of membership that we have, the louder we are when we are at the table. Having that conversation now, starting those conversations now, getting together with your coworkers, your work site, your unit, to start having those conversations about what you're worth and telling management now what you're worth, right? Starting to share that information. Patrick, thank you so much for throwing that in the chat because I was going to ask you to do that. One of the best ways to get involved is by joining or starting a member action team. That is going to help you activate members within your work site, or if you're teleworking, right, which is a little more complicated, we can help you with that too, so that you're able to really start organizing around this exact issue, because you're not alone, my friend. There were plenty of people that didn't get put on that list, and it wasn't for lack of trying. Right? It was management letting us know who is and is not a priority to them. And now we need to remind them, we're the ones out there doing the work. You're the ones out there doing the work. You're the ones out there keeping this state running. And so now it's time for them to realize that you are a priority because you're prioritizing the citizens of this state every single day. Management needs to understand that. And that's how you have that conversation with your colleagues.
Well said, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I think that was really important to mention. And to kind of follow up on that, I've seen a few folks just kind of ask about, in general, as far as bargaining and how certain people, again, those job classes that fell off, OFM or management will say, oh, well, your union didn't care about this one or whatever, which is BS. But one of the other things that I can also say, or that I'd like to encourage folks to do too, is your bargaining team, this team that bargained this contract, is elected by you, is elected by the members. And just speaking very real, those tend to be incredibly low turnout elections. People don't, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's understanding or just people are busy, they don't think it's that important. That is important. So as we're already probably within the next couple of weeks, we'll all sit down, myself, Ashley, Kurt, Teresa, Melissa, everybody, the rest of the team, and start kind of basic planning for next time. Think about yourself, like maybe you should run yourself for the bargaining team, or if nothing else, at least make sure you're paying attention to those elections and paying attention to who you are selecting to that bargaining team. And like I said, I know in the past, certain agencies, they kind of amongst themselves will say, we're going to rally behind person X or person Y and try to get them pushed onto that team. I think that, again, is a good strategy. So that's just something I'd like to encourage folks to consider, as we're talking about contracts and talking about getting involved. That's a way to get involved that will have a direct impact, on the next contract and contracts after that and contracts after that, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. So Teresa, I've got a real specific question for you.
Okay.
The tentative contract, and this is from Cliff, the tentative contract says there's an increase for wing plow operators. Last contract that was removed from premium pay, did it get added back in, and what will it be?
So yes, the wing plow is on the DOT premium list, and it was added back on for Group C equipment. And hopefully, Cliff, you know what that means. But if not, you can email me and we can talk offline.
Thank you, Teresa. So Mike, I'm going to toss one your way, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Could someone please mention the importance of speaking to your legislators in the State House and Senate by contacting them? When they hear from more than one person, they listen. They all have phones and emails, and that's from Han.
Yes, thank you. I was actually just saw that and I was getting ready to click that I was going to answer that one. So good job there. Yeah, I mean, I think Kurt mentioned earlier, step one is getting, or next step one, I guess, is getting the TA. The next step of getting the TA is getting it ratified, right? Getting everyone to vote yes so that it passes. Then it's in the budget, and then we have to get it through the legislature. I'm not going to get super deep into the politics piece right now, but if those those are discussion folks want to have. I'm very happy to have those with you at a later date. Let me know. I'm more than happy to soapbox that for a long time. But what I will say is, come November, first off, make sure you're registered to vote. I'm going to just say that. My little shirt right here, activist on the back, it says vote. This is from our ledge department. If you're a union member, you also need to be a voter. And why is that? I know folks are tired of hearing about this, but it's true. No workforce has more at stake than in the decisions made by elected officials than public employees. We say it, people kind of joke about it, but it is 100% true. The folks that we send to Olympia, and to a lesser degree that we send to DC, are the people who are making decisions on not just our pay, but again, our retirement, our healthcare, our work sites, all of those things. So when you're filling out your ballot in November, because again, you all need to be registered. If you're not registered, go do that immediately. Get registered. And then when you look at your ballot, look at your voters pamphlet. We will send out notices over folks who your members, our union, have endorsed, which is voted on by the membership. You know, this isn't who Mike likes or who Ashley or who Kurt likes. It's who the members decide they want to endorse. Pay attention to folks who, you know, again, are going to support state employees, who are going to support working families. So that's the first step, is getting those folks into office. And then after that, yeah, calling them, emailing them, and let them know who you are. I think, as Ann had said, that's really important. You know, if you just are random state employee X, okay, you know, I'm not saying don't give that call. That's an important call. But if you can give a call that says, I'm going to use myself as an example, you know, hi, Representative, whatever, this is Mikey Stramsky. I'm a social worker at Western State Hospital. You know, we've had horrible recruitment retention issues. You know, we've been working through the pandemic. This contract's really important for reason X, Y, Z. That carries more weight. They remember who you are. And they're more likely to not just they're going to listen to you, but also if you make a good enough argument, they'll tell the rest of their caucus, they'll tell the rest of their colleagues to get that through. Because there's going to be people, as Kurt mentioned, who don't want this to pass. Like people in the legislature who don't want to fund this, who don't want you all to get paid, who don't want you all to get bonuses, who don't want you all to have cheaper healthcare. And we got to make sure that we as in all of our members, all of you here on this call, all your coworkers, are able to overcome that and make sure that this does get through the ledge, so that we can get all those gains on July 1st.
Thanks, Mike. So Teresa, another real technical one for you. I can see you're typing furiously. On assignment pay for dual language, 5% for positions. Is this statewide, all agencies, correct?
So this isn't new. It may be already existing in the assignment pay. And so let me see if I can find it. And why don't I come back to that?
Okay.
If you want to move on, and I'll
Right.
look for it.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and jump in. One of the things that there's a bunch of questions in the chat that are all kind of related to, you know, this job class, which is now inverted because of these other raises with this job class or things like that. Does OFM realize that they were doing that? Yes, because we told them. So whether they knew it ahead of time or not, we told them immediately, hey, you know, yes, like, let's get these folks raises, you know, these folks deserve it. Understand in doing so, though, you know, while you're, what's that phrase? You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? So you're shifting all this money over here to this department, but in doing so, you're going to either create or exacerbate an already existing recruitment retention issue with some of these other departments. Again, we did explain that. We told them Teresa had facts, figures, spreadsheets, all of the data one could ever need to make that case, and I think made it exceptionally well. And ultimately, whether that was OFM's decision or individual agency management's decisions, they felt that it wasn't a priority. You hear us say that a lot. I'll share where that came from. Was I myself was specifically asking, why are these job classes not on there? Or why are you not addressing this? Or why are you not addressing this? Please help us understand. Maybe there's a good reason for it. And then sure, because if there is a good reason for it, we'd like to be able to then explain that to you all. And the only reason that they would give us was it's not a priority. Not a priority. So for those who were left off, or who maybe got on but only got a range, and you're still 10 ranges behind what other folks in the private sector or whatever might be, my suggestion, again, you're going to keep hearing me say this, become a priority. Make them make you a priority. So again, getting involved with your union, figuring out strategies for next contract now, those sort of things, and really just keep hammering them on that. This is a little bit off script. I'm going to throw this out here though, because I think this is incredibly important along those lines of making things a priority. If you are in a job class that is overtime eligible, stop working for free. Clock your overtime. Because one of the things that happens in a lot of these agencies is because we care, right? We care about the work we do. That's why we're in public service. Management uses that, honestly, they use that against you to pay you less and to hide the real vacancy issues, because the work's getting done. That's what Secretary X of this agency sees as the work's getting done. What they don't see is it's getting done because Mike is working until 8 o'clock every night, doing the work of 3 people, but only getting paid for 1. So regardless of agency, regardless of job class, like, clock your overtime and fight for that, because you are working, you deserve to be paid for that, you deserve to be compensated for that. And that is a very real way to push back against when OFM and management says, we don't have a recruitment issue, we don't have an issue with this. Ultimately, like anything in life, right? If you hit people in their pocketbook, that's usually how they're going to start listening. If they have to start paying out, buku overtime in order to just keep the ship running, they're going to realize, like, hey, we really should pay these people more, and we really should hire more staff and do those kind of things. Sorry, I went off on a little rant on that, but I think that is something that's really, really, really important. I think is really key, that if you take nothing else away from this, stop working for free.
Teresa.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back with you on that dual language. So it is on Group B assignment pay, which is based on the task. So that means anybody in any job class who is performing that dual language requirement will receive that assignment pay. And there's a reference, actually. It's reference 18, so you can look more specifically in the contract, but it's based on task, so it applies to people in different job classes.
All right, thank you.
I think we have time for like 1 or 2 more questions. So as I'm flipping through it, if Ashley or Kurt, if you see one you want to jump in on, please jump in.
Did we answer the question about COVID leave?
I don't think so. So you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah, so once upon a time when COVID first started, we all were given what we kindly referred to as COVID leave. It had a different name that was a little more legal than that. That was federal funding that we no longer have anymore. And by we, I mean the state, right? The agencies. So that is not leave that is coming back or that we can access in any way right now. Great question.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Can we get a separate check so we don't get hammered on taxes? We asked, they said no. They said it was too difficult for payroll. So likely it will all be on the same check. This is a bit of a pain, but what I can tell you, if you are concerned about that, if you change your withholdings prior to July 1st, and then after you get that check, change them back to what they normally were before, that might even it out a little bit. That's something that I've done. My dogs have strong feelings about all of
I
these
didn't like
things.
that.
Yeah. But you know, so I'm not giving financial, I'm not giving tax advice, but I've heard of people doing that before to try to help with some of those when they get those big checks. So yeah.
All right. Well, so just kind of to wrap up here, like we said in the beginning, thank you for joining us. First of all, please vote if you haven't already voted. Encourage your coworkers to vote. It's simple, it's easy, it only takes a minute. And if we didn't get to your question tonight, we have recorded these. We also have the ones you submitted in SurveyMonkey, and give us a few days, but we will certainly work on getting a response to all of those questions. All right, so with that, any parting words, Mike?
Yeah, I was just gonna say thanks again, all. You know, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being members, right? I think that's important. I hope that you all got something out of this tonight. I hope that, you know, we've got some ideas for folks to get more active for next time, because while this is a historic contract, it totally is. That's a fact. I'd like every single contract that we do to be historic, meaning that we need to do even better next time and even better next time. And I truly believe we can do that with some of the stuff we talked about tonight. You know, Ashley talked about, you know, the ways to get involved. I talked about the, you know, not free overtime, all of those things. We can implement those. Start thinking about what you need to do now. Talk to your stewards, talk to your reps, become a steward, all of those things. And let's just keep pushing forward, because like I said, as soon as this is ratified, I can promise you we'll take a couple days, not off, but off of bargaining to do our other duties. But then we're going to get back to already looking at next contract and, you know, where we didn't get what we needed this time, and how we, you know, what tactics we need to use, make sure we get that next time. And then I'm going to leave Ashley with the final word.
I have no final words other than have a great night. Enjoy your families. Thank you for all you do. And we will continue fighting for you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, all.
So